Lords and ladies, welcome to the Small Council, Game of Thrones after show. We are here at the beginning of season 6. It was an incredible. I can't even start to describe it yet
because so many words.
Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
But I'm here joined by the amazing Ginny McQueen of House Mormont, and we have Madi Mae here of House Tyrell. I am Ramon Govea of House Stark. So let's jump into this episode because I know that there's a lot to digest after the incredible cliffhanger that we had for season 5. You know, that was, first of all, season 5 was an intense season.
It got dark.
It got really dark.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of us, I was definitely expecting a lot more answers, right?
Definitely.
Right away. And I mean, how do you feel about the first episode?
I'm still processing all of my feelings. But yeah, that entire episode felt like it was all just set up. Like, it was really, like, nothing, there was, like, a couple scenes where things happened, but it was very, like, all those things were happening just to set up the rest of the story, and it wasn't really anything kind of being answered so much as just almost like we got more questions than answers, I feel like.
Definitely. I definitely felt like they were just setting up the pieces. Like, the show is totally a game, and they're just setting up the pieces to see how I just can't.
It's crazy because
Processing
and the interesting thing about this episode, and I want to kind of just jump in order in a minute here, but I found that there are a couple interesting things that I noticed in terms of what happens to some of these characters in this episode. And I feel like this episode was something a lot of these characters had epiphanies this episode. And so let's start with Winterfell, because obviously everyone's been wondering, is Jon Snow dead? Is he alive?
And that's where we started. So.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about that. We open up, and what do we hear first is Ghost, of course.
No. Poor puppy.
Crying his little heart out. Almost made me want to cry seeing him in the middle of Castle Black, no one around.
He's just like locked up trying
It's
to
just Jon and Ghost, and I think it's a really powerful way to open up this season. So let's talk a little bit about Davos and Ed and the guys that are basically now in Castle Black without any alliances.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know. I mean, obviously, there's only a couple people left that even cared about Jon at all. And I love Ed in the books. I think he's really, really funny.
Yeah.
And so even just to have him get a couple extra lines, I'm like, yay, Ed's getting to do something. And he had a couple really good lines. He had, his personality was there, which I really liked. But yeah, I mean, he's like, okay, we've got these like 3 guys here. That's it. And then we've got Davos and then Melisandre just kind of looking really confused and kind of sad.
Definitely. I feel like what's starting there, this little group that's kind of forming, that's following what Jon wanted, an alliance between the Night's Watch and the Wildlings, I think is going to be really, really interesting.
That's a really interesting point, and that's where I kind of noticed that there are a couple of different characters that have these really deep realizations this episode.
Yeah.
And one of the first realizations that we notice is, wait a minute, Jon Snow has saved a lot of people. He's responsible for a lot of lives, and Davos even says that.
Yeah.
He's like, let's not forget that we're not the only ones who owe him our life.
Yeah, that took Ed a minute of like,
that's that moment of epiphany where they realize
you can see it on their
the
face.
Wildlings, they're all there,
and there's
right?
a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives them that extra boost. At least gives Davos the idea, like, hey, maybe we're
not dead yet.
Maybe we can survive this. All we have to do is survive. He says we don't have to die. Whereas Ed is ready, like, hey, Jon Snow is my boy, blood brother.
Yep.
We're gonna do this.
We're done. Let's go.
We're all going out, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna take as many of them down as we can. And it seems like there's gonna be a little bit more strategy now that Melisandre's there too. And we'll get to that because that was interesting.
Insane.
So let's jump over to Winterfell because there's a lot going on down there. Obviously, Ramsay had a realization as well. So let's talk a little bit about Roose and Ramsay and what happens there.
Well, first we had Ramsay with his girl, his poor dead girl.
Yeah.
She's just, you're kind of like, oh, look, he feels actually kind of sad. Like, he looks like he's a little bit actually affected by it.
Definitely.
And then is like, feed her to the dogs.
Well,
Savage.
exactly. I mean, you want everyone to sort of have these human, show these traits of humanity, and you think that you just might be getting that first glimpse where he's giving this little monologue speech about how much he cared about her.
Yep.
And he's
Yeah.
like, okay, great. Do you want to bury her, burn her? What do you want to do with her? The dogs are hungry, right?
know what? I mean,
she's good
that
meat. He
was-
says
yeah.
she's
She's
good meat.
good meat.
She's good
You
meat.
know?
Feed her to the
and
dogs.
you know what? I mean, she was in charge of the dogs. I mean, she was the
Yeah.
kennel master's daughter. Maybe it's just like the circle of life, you know?
Maybe. I mean,
Just fulfilling her role
Yeah,
in the
maybe
cycle
maybe
of
that was
life.
in her will, you know? Maybe she was like, and feed me to the dogs.
Yeah, I doubt it. I doubt it. With Ramsay, I don't think so.
I don't know how they're going to handle, though, the fact that because now Sansa and Theon are gone,
Yeah.
how they're going to handle that they basically just lost their claim to the North.
Yeah, and that's the big
Yeah.
realization
Yeah.
for Ramsay for sure. And you can see it on his face in that scene when Roose
Oh,
is kind of
shit.
like,
Yeah.
Bruce gave them some shit.
Yeah.
and he kind of does it with a bit of a smirk. It's almost like, what are you going to do now? He starts by challenging him about strategy and tactics in battle, right? He's like, you know, maybe we won this one. Let's celebrate. Let's have our victory. But this is not like fighting people who have rations and they're backed by Lannister, by the crown, essentially. So
Yeah.
they know
Like,
that
this
there's
was an easy one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a bigger war coming, and now because Ramsay's been playing games with these two and they've gone off, he's basically risking his claim to Winterfell.
Yeah, no, I like that Bruce was finally calling him on his bullshit and
Yeah.
being like, okay, I know you like to play your little games because
Yeah.
you're weird, and I don't know how you got this weird, but whatever, you're weird. But you didn't think this through. You did
Yeah.
not. You are not a leader.
Yeah.
This
Right.
is not what leaders do.
Yeah.
Right.
And you done fucked up.
I totally agree.
And it's almost a warning too, right? Because he basically calls him out on all of his mistakes and then says, by the way, if you don't get Theon and Sansa back, you're gonna lose the right to rule
Yeah, you're no longer the heir. Like, you're done. Like,
Right.
that's it.
And
Yeah,
so we
there we
also
go.
know from last season that there's a baby on the way that could potentially challenge
and they dropped that
his
it's going to be a
legitimacy.
boy, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I think he's shaking in his boots, probably for the first time that we've ever seen him. You know, he's been kind of comfortable, you know, in his role.
Well, he's a very arrogant,
extremely
terrible person.
Yep.
comfortable in his position.
That's why we love him, right? Or am I the only
No.
one?
No, I think you're the only
Oh,
one.
okay.
Yeah.
Awkward.
I was gonna actually have a conversation. I mean, are you into that? Because that seems like.
I mean,
We'll save that for the
I
next
do love the
intervention.
actor, but
So let's talk about Sansa and Theon now being outside of the wall and having survived that fall. I mean, we got to see some of these clips leading up to the episode, which was kind of cool, of course. But when you watch them, you're like, I just want to keep watching. Why would you do this to
yeah.
us? But let's talk a little bit about, obviously, how their relationship is changing and evolving. And is there hope for redemption for Theon? I mean, that's what I'm wondering. Because up to
Yeah.
this point, he's obviously just been a victim for the last, you know, who knows how long.
victim.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, well, if you look at, I think if you look at Theon's character arc over the whole show, it's really interesting how he kind of resented the Starks at the beginning because he was like, you held me captive, you took me away from my family, and now he's doing everything he can to protect not the last Stark, you know, but the
as
last
far
Stark.
as he knows, it's
as,
the last
as
one
far
around.
as
Yeah.
he knows, and
Now, do you think that has to do with the fact that he's really conscious of the fact that he's protecting the last Stark, or do you think it's more of a personal thing for him?
just with Sansa.
Yeah.
I think he genuinely cares about her, and I think the thing that he's unwilling to admit is the fact that he views the Starks as his brothers and sisters. And they, you know, Robb thought of him as a brother. And so I think now he's kind of giving into that and letting the resentment go. And I actually really like the way he interacts with Sansa now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he definitely was like, you know, at the beginning it was always like he wanted his dad's approval. He's like,
Definitely.
I want my daddy to
Yep.
love me, I want my daddy to love me. My daddy doesn't love me. Oh, wait, but these Stark guys actually were nice to me the whole time.
Yeah.
Oopsies. And honestly, even in this situation, even if he weren't, you know, being like, oh no, I fucked it all up and I really do care about the Starks,
Yeah.
I mean, what are his options right now?
Definitely.
Help
Well-
Sansa and try to get a way out, or
And he's
you know.
clearly crossed the point of no return because when he pushes her off of that balcony, that's his sort of statement of I'm no longer going to serve the Boltons.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's his big step away from Reek and maybe back towards Theon or maybe towards something else. And I mean, obviously that's going to unfold this season. But please. Add your 2 cents. Hit us up on #TheSmallCouncil, and we'll be taking a look at these tweets. So let's jump from Winterfell a little bit further. Oh no, let's not jump from Winterfell.
I was
It's
gonna
a huge
say,
thing.
there was like a big
What am I
wave.
talking
It
about?
just happened.
It's huge. So Brienne of Tarth.
What?
They finally, after how long of waiting for that little signal
She's
from
waited
Sansa,
for so long, and she's tried so many times
So
with the
many
Starks.
times.
to pledge her
Arya
allegiance. Yeah.
And
I know.
Sansa and been like, "Can I help you? No. But can I help you? No.
They're like, "No, thank you."
I'm gonna help you.
Yeah.
And finally, we've got, it was so funny because we're watching it, and we're like, okay, Sansa and Theon, they're getting away.
doing thing.
Okay, Theon's gonna like distract him, and he's gonna go off, and it's like 2 seconds. Oh, now they're captured again. It was like, wait, what? Okay, no. We're like, all right, please, 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 Brienne of Tarth, Brienne of Tarth. Yay, Brienne of Tarth!
It was such like oh my god, it was
And
such
Podrick.
a feeling of relief for
Yeah,
sure.
let's talk about Podrick, man.
Oh,
He was
I
a little
love
badass
Podrick.
this
Yeah.
episode, which is something we've all been waiting. I mean, Podrick's one of those few characters that is clearly just innately good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
In Westeros, in Meereen, the whole world, you don't really see just naturally good people.
Yeah, and both
Yeah.
Brienne and Podrick are like those like absolutely good, honorable.
Yeah, Brienne's
Yeah.
pretty much like a paladin. I mean, she's going around just doing stuff for honor, and she sticks to that and fulfills her duty to Catelyn, who's been gone for an entire season. And so at this point, it's like I really want to see Podrick kind of grow a little bit more and hopefully step into more of that badass role. But for now, I'll be interested to see how long they can survive on their trek to Castle Black, because that's where they're going now.
Yeah.
We assume, yeah.
We assume. Yeah.
hoping.
It's safe to assume. So now let's jump down a little bit further south to King's Landing. Now, a lot happened, obviously, in Dorne, and we'll get to that in a second, but I want to talk a little bit about Cersei and Jaime and their relationship and how that's changed so much over the last couple of seasons. Now they're back together, reunited.
Yeah.
Jaime's clearly a changed person, and I think that becomes
As
clear.
far as he can be,
As
yeah.
far as he can be, right? I
Yeah.
mean, look, people forget that
He
he
pushes
pushed
babies out of windows.
He pushed Bran Stark out of a window.
is
so
not a good guy.
He's not a good guy.
I love Jaime though. I think there's there's a lot to Jaime that people don't give him credit for. And yeah, he pushes kids out of windows.
Yeah.
But I think
We all have flaws, right? We all do things we
Funny
regret.
quirks,
But I love Jaime, and what I love now is he's starting to. I feel like in the Lannister family, and that's kind of why Tyrion doesn't fit in, is because he does things. He's just a good person. Tywin was kind of an asshole.
Yeah.
I loved him, but he was kind of a dick. And Jaime is starting to get away from that. Like, he's starting to be more honorable, and I think that's mainly because of Brienne.
Yeah.
She's totally rubbing off on him, and I love their dynamic. And you can see it now where he's kind of struggling when he's with Cersei. He's like, am I going back to being a Lannister and all of that, or should I follow the new and improved me, which is what he kind of became when he was with
Yeah,
Brienne.
because he clearly still cares about Cersei, like
Definitely.
obviously.
Of course,
Oh,
he's
yeah.
still in love with
And
her,
yeah, like
absolutely.
it's not that he doesn't care for her, but yeah, you can see him kind of like that whole like super evil thing we were doing. Like maybe we're gonna step away from that a little bit
Yeah.
and not be as terrible. But
Although he does make a pretty bold statement. I mean, one of the things that he says is we're gonna take everything.
yeah,
you know?
and that's what I think about Jaime. He's very malleable. Almost like he's a weaker character to whoever he's around. He starts to like he's
Absorb
around
the
Brienne and
flavor?
he's like, oh, I'm a good person. Oh, I'm around Cersei. Oh, now I'm gonna like. He's almost
Yeah.
like.
That's probably just a testament that he himself is weak of character,
Yeah.
And also he does. Cersei is so manipulative.
She is, and yet I still felt bad for her. Like the scene of her,
It's
like
crazy.
just her face of like just seeing her so happy, and you knew what was about to happen, and
Yeah.
you're like, oh no, don't smile. Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh, you poor. Like she's a bad person. But you still feel that like this woman who the only thing she's ever cared about in her whole life is her family, and that's it.
And at the same time, she admits that she's known for God knows how long. I remember when they showed the flashback of that prophecy that her children were going to die.
Yeah.
And so now she seems to be a believer in that. Okay, so let's consider now she's been captured and kept prisoner by the High Sparrow, right? And now she's gone through this pretty transformative experience of being shamed, walking all the way through King's Landing, completely naked, rotten vegetables thrown at her, right? That's the last time we saw her. And then she's reflecting now on whether or not she's a monster. And she says, I had thought for a moment that maybe I wasn't a monster, which is very reflective of what's going on internally for her, because she acknowledges the fact that she has that dark side. and not everybody in the show does that, or even explores it, or even sees themselves as a villain. So for her to say that she was kind of thinking maybe I'm not a monster, it means that it's very revealing of her internal thought.
Well,
What do you
especially
think about,
when her first child was so the opposite of nice and sweet and good.
Sure, Joffrey.
And
But she was totally aware.
Yeah, and she knew it, and she was accepting of it. But then, Joffrey's been gone, and now she just has these two lovely children who are nice and good.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might have also done something to her of like, both of my kids now are just these really nice, sweet, that they care about, and I love them. Maybe things won't be as terrible for me. And then now she's like, oh no, now I'm losing that kid too. Oh, now I'm like starting to lose everything. And
well, she's a character she's a woman who seems to define herself by her children. But I think having Joffrey and just witnessing the monster that he was, she says, when I had her, she was so pure and good. And when you compare that to what Joffrey was, you can see the monster. And so she seems to define herself completely by her children. Right? So I'm wondering now how that's going to affect her relationship with Tommen.
yeah, it's almost like Tommen's gonna be he's the only one left. So it's either she's gonna smother him to death and like lock him in a room so he stays safe forever.
Yeah.
Or, her attitude could change completely. She could maybe start trying to be nice, but I don't think she will. I think that her manipulative side is always going to come out no matter what.
Well, if anything, this experience may have pushed her further over the edge to the dark side. And now with Jaime coming back, having had that moment with Myrcella in the boat, and now sort of kind of coming back to his family and really caring about Cersei and the kids and having closure with Myrcella, him making a statement like, "Hey, now we're gonna fuck everybody up, right?
Yeah.
We're in the corner. We're gonna make them all
It's
pay."
time to lash out on everybody.
Do you think that will feed Cersei's darker side?
I don't know. It might almost be like
What
they
do
might have
you
to
guys
rebalance
think?
each other. Maybe it'll go the other way, and Jaime will start being the crazy one, and Cersei will be trying to rein him back. Like, whoa.
That would be interesting.
I want to see how that plays out for sure, because I want to see if Jaime's going to bring anything of the new Jaime to this dynamic with Cersei.
Or if that was just kind of a temporary thing.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's kind of hard to say that he's completely new because no one ever just completely does a 180.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see this season. They're definitely setting up some serious conflicts because it's House Lannister versus the world at this point.
Pretty much.
and
But
we
hasn't
have
it
to-
always been?
Yeah.
If we're being real.
Entirely
And this
honest with
episode, we
ourselves?
didn't see anything with Lancel, and we didn't see anything with Kevin either.
Yeah.
So we've still got two other Lannisters that are on either sides here. We've got one who's, completely kind of bonkers
Yeah.
Yep.
and helping to keep people in prison and do
Yep.
all this stuff. And then we've got Kevin, who, as far as we know, is trying to, be cool and is, a very calm individual.
Yeah.
And, especially in the books, too, he's just very okay, guys, we're all going to calm down.
He just wants to make
All gonna be good.
everything back to normal. He wants the kingdom to be run how it should be run, and that's what makes him so different. He just wants everything to be easy and normal
Chill
and
out,
not
guys.
fucked up.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting to consider this notion that Cersei says, "I believe in the prophecies," right? This is someone who has basically lived her whole life focused only on politics and manipulation and what seem to be practical things, except for when they show that flashback. And now for a character like Cersei to now be acknowledging sort of the magic side of the world, I think is a big deal. And I think it's reflective of what the rest of the season is going to be like.
Definitely. I think in every single section of this episode, magic has been brought in a really subtle way, and I think they're definitely setting that up for the rest of the season, because in the books, magic is such a huge part of this world, and I feel thus far the show's really kind of left that out. And I'm so excited to see that, because that's my favorite freaking part of the show, or of the series even, is just all the magic in it. So it's kind of cool. I'm so excited to see that.
Yeah.
And then let's talk a little bit about the High Sparrow and that whole situation. I mean, they basically are able to imprison anyone they call a sinner without any kind of repercussion. And we have that brief exchange with Marjorie, which isn't too huge. But what does this mean for the Tyrells? The situation that they're in terms of power in King's Landing is obviously waning, but the Lannisters are still struggling too. So now that the Lannisters are going to be going up against those of the faith, what do you think that means for House Tyrell? What about you? You're fully 100%
House Tyrell.
supporter of House Tyrell.
Well, I mean, Marjorie's being set up right now. Like, Cersei put her in there on purpose. And I mean, as Marjorie says, you know, none of us are saints. All of us have something that we're not proud of. But she's being set up. Like, she's put in there just so she's out of the picture. And I want to see how they're going to handle Loras, actually. I want to see how they're going to handle that situation.
Especially because, Marjorie, her only crime that she was sent there for was for lying about knowing her brother was banging a dude.
Yeah,
like,
that's it.
That's not really that big a deal compared to Cersei, who has been banging her brother and has 3 bastard kids.
Literally everyone in the family.
And her cousin and everybody. Like, it's weird. So the fact that Cersei got to get out and Marjorie's still stuck in there is really interesting. And it's something where we have Loras and we've got all the Tyrells, that are kind of in a really shit spot right now. But I feel, Cersei kind of realizes, whoopsies, we gave these guys power and we shouldn't have. Right. And I think it's kind of going to be like, you know what, we need the Tyrells more than we need these crazy religious people. Right. So they're going to have to, whatever is good for the Lannisters right now is probably good for the Tyrells.
Agreed. And I think that's definitely going to probably shift things a little bit. So let's jump a little bit now to Dorne, because that was crazy.
What?
That was crazy. Like, I don't even know where to begin.
I think we all had a collective, like, what?
Like, table flip.
I mean, the prince was what, in 3 episodes?
Yeah.
Before he got
was insane.
So I don't know if you guys know that. So 2 of us are huge book people.
Yeah.
And so, we're both under this assumption that Doran's going to have this very big political, part to play, and the in control of Dorne and being like kind of setting pieces up. He's a very calculated, very put together dude who kind of keeps all the sand snakes in check and gets it. And this was just like, hey guys, oh God, you're all dead. Oh my God, everyone died.
Yeah, it was really crazy, and I mean, it's going to be interesting to see now. I mean, the sand snakes basically run Dorne now. Right. So let's talk about that, because I know that in the books it's a little bit different than the portrayal in the show, and we don't know a lot of information about Dorne, about the House Martell or anything like that. So, where do you think they're going to go with it? I mean, there's a lot that's left out, but there's also some interesting things that are in there. So.
Well, it feels like to me, again, we don't know where this is going to go, but to me, it feels like the showrunners almost decided that they were gonna do more with Dorne, and then they're like, oh wait, never mind, we're gonna like cut out like most of it. And like, I feel like, why else introduce Trystane if you're only gonna have him there for like an episode and then get rid of him? Like, what? Like, a lot of it was like, why introduce these characters if you're just gonna murder them like the next episode? It was really odd for me that they even bothered to give them any sort of like.
I feel like Trystane's death was really pointless. Like, I'm not really even sure why he had to die.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, there's this extra guy over here. Oh, I'll kill him. Like, what? Why?
I mean, it would have left a loose end had they not killed him.
Right. And
so
people would have been wondering, like, what happened to Trystane?
Yeah,
because
definitely.
We were all assuming that he was going to be captive in King's Landing because we assumed that he went with them, but then he wasn't with them, and then he was on a other boat.
Yeah, that was insane.
I was so confused.
I'm hoping that will. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever get an answer.
I don't
for that
know what.
one.
Yeah, I mean, from what I'm remembering from the end of season 5 was they were all standing on the pier, all together.
Right.
And then Myrcella and everybody was
on the boat.
Going away.
They showed one boat
They
gone,
showed the boat.
and I assume that
so I guess we're
Trystane
assuming that
was
Trystane was on a different boat?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I was so confused. I don't know. So the whole Dorne thing is very confusing.
It's crazy. I mean, and I don't know what's the next step for Dorne. What's the next step for the Sand Snakes?
Dorne.
Yes, Doran, Prince Doran from Dorne.
Prince Doran. The dead Prince Doran of Dorne.
Of Dorne. So he always wanted to keep Dorne out of war. That was like his biggest thing. Was like, no matter what, he always kind of rationalized it. Like, no matter what, he was always going to keep Dorne out of battle. Like,
and he wanted to have a plan. Like, he was like, you guys don't have a plan. You're just going off of emotion.
Very calculated. Like when Oberyn died, he was like, well, that he died by the law. We can't go to war over that. And so everything was very calculating. And it's interesting to see how Dorne that has been so reserved is now, I mean, shit's going down. Like,
Yeah.
I want to see how that's gonna go.
I honestly, if I lived in Dorne, I'd be like, I'm out. Like,
Yep.
this is not good for any
It's not
of
what I
us.
signed up for.
Yeah.
The government is completely like having a coup now. Like, I'm out. This place is no longer safe.
It was insane.
There's a new head honcho in town,
Yeah,
and
like,
everybody
she's almost
better
like if, like,
buckle the fuck up.
fashion-
She's
right?
like, you know, like if a Republican got elected real quick and we're like, like run away. Like, we don't
Wait,
want this.
you don't say.
They're just suddenly going to war without
Yeah.
any, you know?
Yeah.
I don't like it.
It's going to be terrible. We're gonna go to King's Landing.
They're gonna build a wall around a different wall. We're
The
building a second
Lannisters
wall.
are the worst.
We're gonna make the Lannisters pay for the wall.
So-
We're
so-
gonna build that wall.
So that's gonna be interesting to see over the course of the season. You know what the plan is that the Sand Snakes have, because
I
they've
don't think
obviously
they
been
have a
planning.
plan.
They,
I don't
and they
think
probably
they have a
don't.
plan
They're
either.
purely driven by revenge.
Yeah.
We'll see. So let's jump over to people who only deal in plans. Let's talk about Tyrion and Varys.
Yay!
Some rational people,
Yes.
finally.
Yes.
Love it. I could just watch like a sitcom like about those two. Just,
Oh,
like,
totally.
hanging out,
Like
doing
they're
stuff.
they're the
you know?
best odd couple I think. I don't know. I've seen in a long
Yeah,
time.
they're so
Long
funny
time.
together. I love their dynamic.
So now they've got Meereen on their hands, and
Which is not in a good spot.
it's in a terrible spot.
Absolutely.
It's in a terrible spot. I mean, whenever you come in and uproot any kind of society, there's going to be some kind of backlash. And what Daenerys just did was basically free all the slaves and tell the people who own the slaves that they weren't. She came in and basically just fucked shit up.
Yeah, their entire system of
The
like
whole society
everything
is
gone. Yeah.
But then
gone,
she
right?
didn't like put any new rules.
She
in.
hasn't put
Yep.
anything
She
into
didn't
place.
do anything.
Because
And
she's
now-
not a good leader.
Well, she's young, she's inexperienced, she doesn't, and that's why she had people like Jorah and Dario and all these people surrounding her to sort of give her this counsel, give her this advice. Poor Grey Worm, right?
Oh, poor buddy.
And we didn't even get to see him this episode. But we have Tyrion, we have Varys, who are two really intelligent people, and they hinted at it, of course, last season. You know, what if someone knew how to deal with all these rogues in this dismantling, crumbling city, and what if someone knew all the secrets, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how they try and put things back together without Daenerys. Do you think they'll be able to do that?
Well, I mean, just the one scene that we had with them. I mean, first off, we did get to see them seeing another the Lord of Light talk. Like
Yes.
We've got more of that going on, and I think we're going to have even more of that later on. So there's a lot of religious stuff that's going to be happening.
This season, absolutely.
But then also we just saw that someone set all their boats on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's huge.
That's
because
like their fleet. Like they're like, well, I guess we're not going anywhere.
well, it's interesting because that means that someone wants to stop any kind of entrance and exit from Meereen, right? The Harpies have a plan, and Varys even notes that. He says what they did in that pit in the Colosseum was carefully planned. So
Yeah.
they're taking orders from someone, and the question that they keep hinting at is who is the leader of the Sons of the Harpy, right? So the real question, I think, is going to become why are they basically separating Meereen from everything else?
Yeah, like what's
right?
the end game?
What's the end game?
Yeah.
What's the real question? And maybe their plan is to take advantage of the chaos and destruction and try and get the power back now that because there's a big power vacuum, right? Daenerys is gone. You have two strangers here who are supposedly going to try, along with Grey Worm, who's from the Unsullied. He's one of the only people that the people of Meereen will even respect. That's why he sticks around. It's going to be interesting to see those three trying to rule Meereen.
Yeah, especially because and they last season murdered a bunch of like all the like rich like houses, like all
Right.
those heads of whatever. Like they're all gone. Like there's almost no one left
Right.
to even go, hey, who would be running these guys?
Right.
Because we don't have any suspects left,
Yeah,
basically.
Right,
Definitely.
right, and it's interesting that they're introducing more, I guess you could say, high priestesses and priests of the Lord of Light. I mean, that's a big deal for them to keep bringing that up.
Yeah, so they're definitely
halfway
gonna be a
across
major
the world,
thing,
right?
yeah.
So, I mean, the Lord of Light. I mean, we've sort of been building up to this, and I know people who read the books know that it's a song of fire and ice, right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about fire. They keep introducing these priests and priestesses who worship Roller, right? And then we've got the White Walkers, and so there is going to be this clash of fire and ice. But the question is, where is that going to happen? happen? When is that going to happen? Who are the players going to be there, right? So I'll be interested to see how many more people that they bring in who are followers of the Lord of Light and how that affects.
Well, like Thoros of Myr and direct on
Right,
Tyrion,
right.
that was
There's
a huge
rumors.
deal.
Hopefully that they'll come back at some point.
They might
That
come
would
back.
be great.
And of course, it relates to Castle Black and Melisandre, and again, we'll get to that in a minute. But let's talk about Jorah and Dario. Right.
There's another buddy show I really like.
I know, it's just like,
It's like they're buddy cops, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
They got like good cop, bad cop, you know.
Yeah.
Jorah's like the older, grizzled, you know, detective.
He's the Bruce Willis
and,
of the bunch, right? And then
That
you got.
explains why I like him so much. I have a crush on Jorah, just so everyone knows this.
Is that why you chose House Mormont? Yeah.
But also England's just cute. But yeah,
and
no,
it's interesting. They're just setting up that dynamic of, you know, he calls him out. He's like, I know why you're here. They both know
why they're there
in
because
love
they both love Dany.
with the same woman. And I wonder now how how the grayscale is going to affect him now.
yeah.
I don't.
Because he knows he can't be with her, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's
he
been
has to know
shut down
that.
like
Yeah.
100 times before even the grayscale happened, so
Yeah.
it's not like he really has any hope, but I feel like he's always just genuinely cared about her just
Yeah.
as a person.
Well, when he
you
wasn't,
know?
you know, screwing her over. But,
Yeah.
You know.
He didn't know her that well.
In the beginning,
Fine.
was it before he fell in love with her?
Yeah.
I'd say yeah, right?
Yeah, okay, point.
So obviously, naturally, Daenerys and the Dothrakis, right?
Well, I mean, we did have.
Interesting.
I remember when we were seeing like clips and stuff from this episode. There was the finding the ring
Yes.
when they were investigating, and
Yes.
we were all like, "How would you find that ring? Like, in like this vast country, like how would you even find this?" And at least we got an answer to that,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was they showed where they were stomping around. They made
Yeah.
almost like a crop circle. So
Yeah.
at least that made sense. I actually liked it. I was like, "Okay, that makes more sense. Thank
Yeah.
you."
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
It's basically a big bullseye.
Yeah.
So they can.
They had a reason to actually be there and looking in that area. So I was like, okay, that at least makes a little bit of sense.
Yeah, because I was wondering how they were going to pull that off. And then we have, so we have her in the Dothraki camp, and we have that big bombshell dropped of, you know, you think for just a second that she's regained their respect and they're going to treat her differently, and they do. They're like, okay, well, you're not going to get raped.
Yeah.
But
And she's like, oh, phew, thank goodness.
she's like, oh,
cool.
so
I'll give
worried
you guys
about
some
that.
horses. It'll be great, right?
Yeah, I'll give you whatever you want. Just get me home. And now she realizes that she's going to be what she has been, like her biggest mission has been to free people who are slaves and captives. And now she's basically being condemned to being a captive with all the widows of
the
dead.
Dashkalim.
Yeah, exactly.
Those poor, yeah. So basically, yeah, in the Dothraki system, like once your Khal dies, the wife of the Khal is put to, you know, just basically serving the Dothraki, and you know they're like the old
But
women
they're-
that like feed you hearts when you're pregnant. And,
Yeah, but
you know.
like they're the most esteemed of the society.
Yeah, they're respected.
You know?
Sure.
They're respected, but they're also like, this is your place. Like,
Yeah.
you
Right.
don't get to choose
Yeah.
not to do this.
Exactly.
Right,
yeah.
right. You just accept it, and that's it, and that's your fate.
But that's kind of, you know, that's like Dothraki tradition. And if we look at Dany, what does she do? She comes in and she breaks tradition everywhere she goes.
Everywhere she goes. That's a
So,
really good point.
I don't know if she's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm not
break out of
terribly
there.
worried for her.
No.
I'm really
No,
not.
I don't think so. No, I mean, we've had these hints sort of from the trailers. You know, we've seen dragon shadows flying over
One
the
way or the other, a dragon's gonna
encampment.
show up
We
at
know,
some
we know
point.
Jorah and Dario are looking for her. Does that mean they get to her in time? I mean, the two of them, what are they going to be able to do against a Dothraki?
Where's
encampment,
Drogon?
right?
Where's the dragon?
He's
still
sleeping. He had a food
he's
coma.
sleeping it off,
he was,
right?
you know, he's fine.
Exactly.
He's chilling out.
I just want to see him.
So let's talk, and it's interesting because the women accuse her of being a witch, and again, there's more. There's
But
constantly.
she recites exactly what the witch says
Yes.
to her
Yeah.
when
Yes.
she puts the thing on Khal Drogo. So I thought that was, when that happened, I was kind of like, dang.
Yeah. No, I mean, Dany's always, ever since her brother's death, she has been a badass. And she's
Definitely.
completely embraced it. She's the kind of person who will not speak the language, not give away her advantage, and then when it suits her, when it serves her, she tries to claim her power. And in this case, I think it's one of the first cases where she's always doubted, right? She's always going up against these really powerful male figures who put her down and talk shit about her and tell her about how they're going to rape her before she declares her truth, right? She'll step up to them and say, that's not going to happen. And you know, either I'm going to kill you and you're going to die, or if you spare me, then I'll reward you with X, Y, Z. And in this case, I think this is the first time in a while where we've actually seen her get shut down.
Well, this is also one of the first times since, season 1 where she hasn't had a dragon to be like,
Sure.
I have dragons.
Sure.
Even when the dragons were little babies, she could be like, hey, set them on fire. And you guys,
Yeah, definitely.
people get set on fire.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have any dragons right now.
They're her
so.
enforcer for sure. And
I mean,
without
she
them-
did lock 2 of her dragons in a basement, which is very upsetting to me. She is a terrible dragon mother. Just
Yeah.
putting that out there. They
Somebody calls social
Child
services.
is going to show off dragon services.
Speaking of child services and social services, let's talk about the blind girl in the street getting her ass beat by
She had it
one of the
coming.
faceless.
Man,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
like
So
Arya.
so Arya has had a really interesting arc over the last 5 seasons, right? We've seen her start off just this innocent young girl, obsessed, loves her and respects her dad. She's always had that rebellious spirit, but now we've gotten to the point where she's been through a lot of shit, right? She's had the whole journey with the Hound, and now she's with the faceless, the faceless god. And I don't know. Do you think that this is sort of a turning point for her?
Well, I mean, if we look at Arya at the end of last season, she was totally empowered. She was a super badass,
Sure.
It was just how that whole scene went down. She was such a badass. And then now, if you look at her, she's kind of like, oh, I'm blind, and she's. I think
It's a lesson in humility.
Definitely,
right?
I absolutely think it is.
Yeah.
But I also think it's totally part of her training.
Yeah.
Because they're teaching her to be more aware. So I think it'll work out for her. If she
She's
can just-
basically Daredevil now. So,
She is Daredevil.
she can just learn how to,
Matt Murdock Stark.
Yeah,
over
it's a new
here.
power. It's fine.
Cool. So when we come back, we're gonna talk a little bit about the
last
last part of the episode. So stick around. If you have questions, comments, hit us up at the hashtag #TheSmallCouncil. You can find us on Twitter, and we'll be back.
Just in case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live.
In case you missed it live.
Oh, you'd want to take the time travel the whole way back.
How did we not figure it out?
We had a crazy vampire threesome.
And you can't unsee that. That's burned into my brain now.
I was like,
How did you get here? No. Look at me, I'm dancing. You know why we saying yes. You know why we saying yes.
he was like, yeah, I'll tell you whatever you want.
He is quite something.
And we're like, inseparable. She was shadier than Sunglass Hut with Ray-Bans on sale, ladies and gentlemen.
No, it wasn't. So come on.
You just went to a totally different direction on that.
When a billionaire goes broke, it means he's got like $4 million.
Hold the phone,
Hold on.
bro.
I found her to be deliciously out of control.
Oh man, looking forward to this fight.
Ooh, they about to get together. Watch, it's about to go down.
Somebody better take some pictures of this.
She just slapped the crap out of Nick.
And he's just
It's so good.
You can't count anything out.
Look at you.
It's been another awesome night at theStream.tv, guys.
Thank you for joining us, you guys.
Yes.
We love you.
Welcome back to the Small Council. We are here talking the only thing that matters right now, Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So now we're gonna look at a couple different social media platforms here and answer some of your questions, get in some conversation. One of the cool things, well, let's first of all, let's wrap up that episode,
We've got
right?
one last part.
one big.
So we've got we start off. We've got Thorne being like, "Hey guys, let us in your little room," and Davos is like, "Pass."
He's like, well, let me think. No, he's like, let me think about
Can
it.
you just give us some food? and
Leave
we'll
your
come
terms
back?
on a sheet, and we're gonna review with our internal
Yeah.
council.
We'll have
So-
our people call your people.
So one of the big questions, obviously, that everyone is talking about is Jon Snow, right?
up with
That's
Jon
definitely what
Snow?
I care about. House Stark for life, for life. And we have him in the room now. He hasn't turned into a White Walker yet. It's been probably
like a day,
at least
right?
half a day, right? Because they did it at night, and
I feel like they've been there
Thorne
for a
is telling
while.
them that they need to get out before nightfall, right? They have until nightfall to decide.
Yeah.
So it's got to be at least 8 to 12 hours later. Hasn't turned into a White Walker. Melisandre's somewhere in there.
Yeah, so they're basically like, we don't know what to do. Ed is off trying to go find wildlings.
It sounds like
That's all
Davos
we
is just
know.
trying to buy time.
Yeah, and Davos is just waiting for Ed to come back, and they'll have wildlings hopefully
Right.
come save them.
Right.
Yeah.
And in the
Right.
meantime, they're like, and your red woman, you can take her with if you want.
Let's talk about the Red Woman, because that's the name of this episode. It's the Red Woman.
What?
Right? So everyone has been talking this whole time between season 5 and season 6 about how Jon Snow will hopefully be resurrected. We've seen hints of this because she's a follower of the Lord of Light. We've seen people get resurrected with that power.
Barracks come back like 6 times or something.
Yeah, 6 or 7 times, right? Now, she has never performed that herself, because when we see that, when she sees someone get brought back to life for the first time, she didn't even realize that was possible. So we don't know if she knows how to do that. We know she's clearly questioning her faith, right? Because everything that was happening with
She's like, this
with
is not what I
Stannis-
saw was going to
No,
happen.
she's been looking into the flames. She's seen Stannis. She's seen Jon Snow. The telling thing is that she did say she saw Jon Snow fighting in Winterfell.
Yeah.
Does that happen? Does it not? I don't know. But let's talk about her little transformation.
That
right?
was crazy.
That was...
What was that?
What was that?
What?
It was definitely surprising. It clearly means that she's much older than we thought she was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could
Right.
mean that she's just been really old this whole time, or it could be that whatever power she's using is draining her, and that's a glamour,
Yeah.
or like it could be any number of things.
Yeah, but the most important thing is that it's magic.
Magic.
Right? More
Yes.
magic shit. And this whole episode, like I said, the two big things that I've noticed about this season opener is that a lot of people had some really big epiphanies about where they are in the world, what their life's purpose is,
Yeah,
right? What
totally.
direction they're
Everybody's
going to be going.
questioning
Everything has
things,
been
yeah.
questioning everything and kind of just been caught up in the storm of the politics of the houses and the repercussions of all that for the first 5 seasons. And now you have these critical lead characters who are having epiphanies and starting to sort of go in directions that maybe we feel like they've always been meant to go, but have not for whatever reason, or they're diverted. And the other big sort of reveal of this first episode is like all the magic. Everyone's kind of been acknowledging the existence of magic here and there. And this episode, almost every scene had some type of acknowledgement of magic. So anyway, let's jump right to the Q&As.
Yeah, I think some people had
a
some
lot of
things
people-
to say about this.
A lot of people have a lot of tweets. And
We had a good jewelry comment. I think did you?
Yep.
yeah, kudos on the jewelry.
Hollywood at Hollywookie
Hi,
said,
Kurt. That's Kurt.
"It's amazing how a little jewelry can make a woman more attractive." You're welcome. Yep.
There's also a comment on YouTube similar that's like a bunch of these that are just like, what is going on? Like,
So let's talk
people
about
are losing their shit.
Let's talk about
Good. That's what we want.
Rebecca Quiros said on Twitter. She said, so when they picked up John's body, she saw a dire wolf, and she gave us a screenshot.
That's insane.
If you look at the blood spot after they took Jon Snow's body, you could actually make out maybe the
I could see
figure.
that.
I could see that. A
I could
figure
see
of
that.
a
Well, I feel like in this episode they were really stressing the connection between Ghost
and
Jon.
Jon.
Yeah, they mentioned Ghost
Absolutely.
every single
it came
time.
up so many times.
Well, and the whole episode opens with Ghost
With
howling
Ghost, yeah.
for a good minute or so, right? So I don't know. I mean, we know Bran is obviously warging. We know that Jon has seen the wildlings warg too. So maybe that's a possible.
Magic.
Maybe
Magic.
maybe Jon is already in there. I don't
maybe.
know.
I would really like that, because that was my number one theory. Like, was that okay? Even because even within the books too, I was just like, they've been talking about the warging so much
Yeah.
with the wildlings,
Yeah.
just so much, pushing it so hard that I was like, come on, it's got to come up.
So
Like, it's got to come up.
that leads into a good question. At Skull Lee on Twitter asked, "Did you guys all read the books, and what do you miss from the books that didn't make the show?"
That's
So many
things.
That's another few hours of discussion.
That
right?
is.
Hit us up personally, because we will
hit us up
talk
on
to
Twitter.
you about
And again,
it
like
for
these are
hours.
We're gonna
also
be here all night, folks.
Yeah.
We're gonna be tweeting
Forever.
for the Eastern time and Pacific time.
Yeah.
We're gonna be talking about this all
Don't
night.
worry about it. But
We'll
yeah,
be
there's.
here.
I mean, if I had to pick one thing that I miss from the books, oh my God, picking one thing.
Magic.
More magic.
Yeah,
Magic,
more
because
magic.
it's like also, well, yeah, Bran.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both very upset that Bran was not in this episode. We know he's in this
Absolutely.
season, but we were really hoping
But I feel
we'd
like
get some Bran.
they were also bringing magic into this episode to set up for Bran, because Bran's whole storyline is magic.
Exactly.
That's just what he is at
Exactly.
this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be really interesting, and it was a good setup
Yeah.
in terms of magic.
So.
All right, let's see. Another question here. We've got
Ghost in the Snow.
Ghost in the Snow.
Yeah, at Hollywookie. Yeah.
exactly.
Hashtag Ghost in the
There's
Snow.
some ones on YouTube as well.
Yeah.
Let's see. A lot of people angry at Ollie.
A lot of people
Lot of
hate.
people
There's some
angry at
pure
Ollie.
hatred for the Allmeister.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm on that boat. I'm definitely on that boat.
Several comments about seeing Brienne and Sansa and Theon holding each other. Like that was really a big moment for them.
Yeah.
That was a tender moment. Yeah.
I feel like it was a big moment, but also, Theon, I don't like him so much.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, if you have any more questions, hashtag the Small Council. Thanks for joining us tonight after this episode of Game of Thrones Season 6. You can catch us next week, same time, right after the episode. And we're going to be talking about this all week. So send any questions you have.
Bug us.
Hashtag
on
the
social
Small
media.
Council.
We
Hit us
wanna
up
talk
on
to you.
Twitter, Instagram, whatever. We'll talk Game of Thrones all day, every day.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye.